When the sun sets, the undead awaken. To slake their hunger, they feed upon the herd of unaware mortals. Right beneath our noses, the kindred clash against their rivals as they vie for control of the city of San Francisco. Are you strong enough to cheat final death and see another night? Vampire the Masquerade Rivals Expandable card game from Renegade Game Studios.
Welcome everyone to Vampire Wednesdays. I am Sara Erickson, Director of Sales and Marketing here at Renegade Game Studios, and I have a special treat for everyone in chat this evening. I have two very important members of our community that I am going to be asking all sorts of very difficult questions about how awesome Vampire is. No, they won't be hard, I promise. But I did want to have them come and join us this evening because they are playtesters. So I want to introduce you. We have Jared Reitinger. How's it going, Jared?
Great. How are you doing?
Good. Joining us from Pennsylvania. Very exciting. Nice to have you. And we also have James Parsons from Ohio. How's it going, James?
Doing well, hanging in there as best one can.
Nice. So I wanted to have you both on the show this evening because you have been part of Vampire the Masquerade Rivals Expandable card game since almost the very beginning. Before anybody in chat hardly even knew that this thing existed, you were there working hard, playtesting, making sure all the kinks are worked out, and creating the best possible gaming experience for all of our Kickstarter backers and everyone else who gets to jump in on this game. So I want to get to know you a little bit and find out about how the playtesting went, any fun experiences you had. So Jared, let's start with you. So tell us a little bit about your gaming history. How did you get to be a gamer in the first place?
Oh man, I have played games for a very, very long time. So I guess to tie everything here in Vampire, my background in Vampire comes from 2004. Vampire the Masquerade was the very first RPG I ever played, ever. And we played it as a Larp, which was pretty crazy at the time for me, but great. So I've loved Vampire ever since then. And then I evolved into playing a lot of card games. I've played just about all of them, usually casual and tabletop, just around the kitchen table playing with friends. And then from that went into board games, everything from crunchy Euros to just those, nice casual games, and playing forever. So that's
LARPing, it doesn't seem like something that you would just sort of get a call from a friend and say, hey, would you like to go LARP Vampire with me? So what was that story? How did you get into that group?
I always wanted to play an RPG. Always had an interest, but I never had the opportunity or had the go get them to start a game. So I was in college and made a bunch of close friends, and one of them was like, hey, we're gonna play this Vampire RPG. I never heard of Vampire at the time. And I was like, yeah, sounds great, because I always wanted to. And they're like, oh, yeah, we're gonna do it, and we're gonna take a whole house, and we're gonna have different rooms or different scenarios, and we're gonna walk around. I was just like, yeah, let's go for it. So I just jumped in.
That's pretty exciting. I think that it's really interesting to hear how people get into the hobby in the first place, because it's not always a clear path. And I'm always surprised when talking to board gamers. I talked to somebody recently who their very first modern board game was Power Grid, which is this intensely heavy, big, complicated economic strategy game. And they hadn't played Ticket to Ride or Settlers of Catan or any of these other wonderful gateway games. They just started right there in the deep end. And it sounds like you got what's sort of a similar experience for Vampire.
Yeah, for RPGs, yeah, definitely. But it was super fun. Yeah, we used the old, someone mentioned, we used the old Mind's Eye Theater is what we did for our system. We did rock, paper, scissors to do our skill checks, and that was it.
Amazing. That's awesome. Well, yeah, thanks for sharing that. How about you, James? How did you get started in gaming in general?
Gaming in general, like a lot of people, my first game was probably Magic Magic the Gathering. It was just like that thing to collect, both a collectible and a card game that sort of appealed to you. I mean, I guess at any age, but when you're a kid especially, that collectible aspect really grabs you. But for me, that transitioned into board gaming and stuff. As far as RPGs go, my World of Darkness experience, I've played a little of Vampire. I actually played more of Wraith, which is a little bit more obscure of a World of Darkness thing, but I really, that's just the one my play group sort of resounded with. So that was sort of my introduction into the World of Darkness universe and the other settings. As far as board games, I play a lot of them, and I get like lately to use it as an excuse of like tying it into work, because we own a board game bar. So it's always useful to like keep on top of like what's cool, what's fun, how to play them. So it's a really good excuse to be like, yeah, I'm working, I'm learning a game. So I really like. Do what?
I never would have guessed you played a lot of games by your shelf behind you.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
It looks like I'm flexing. I just have
up.
better internet here. That's one of the reasons I've streamed from here.
Nice. So you've been doing this for a long time too, but important question: have you ever played a LARP? Just to make sure we're on the same playing
I have
field.
wanted
Okay.
to though. Like Dungeon War, like yeah, there's a lot of cool, or even like at Gen Con and Origins, they have like the LARP experience like in a box almost. I forget, what is it called? True Dungeon maybe or something?
Yeah, True
like
Dungeon.
True
Yep,
Dungeon.
True Dungeon.
I wanted to
Yeah.
try that. That seems like a really good like user friend, like easy introductory thing to LARPing. But I've always wanted to try it. So maybe you. I mean,
Oh
you're
my
not
gosh.
far from. Maybe I'll come and you'll show me how to play, Jared.
Yeah, once quarantine's done,
One
we'll
state
we'll do
away.
something, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
There you go. So I'm just reading chat here, and James Brazil actually noted that there's some really cool places that you can LARP and you can go get experience in some neat places. So I'm not going to ask you, James, because you haven't LARPed yet. I know you're going to in the future. But Jared, where's the best place that you've LARPed?
I mean, I've only did that one LARP experience, unfortunately, just in a guy's house and with different rooms. I would definitely do it again. It's super fun. I still play a lot of RPGs, but that was my only LARP.
Oh, I want to do that for Halloween next year. I think it'd be really
Yeah.
fun to take a big building. Like I actually own a store here in Montana as well, a hobby store. So I want to turn the entire store just into an experience for Halloween and have people come and LARP. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, the guy who ran our LARP used to do weekends, and they'd rent out a building or a convention center, and they would do it there. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Nice. So you both started playing games. James ended up owning a store. Jared, you just keep playing games. So how did you find out about this playtest opportunity?
James, you go first.
Yeah, I can go first. I was sort of shocked. The first game, because I play a lot of card games, but my first like competitive love was a game called Netrunner, Android Netrunner specifically for FFG and all that stuff. And that was Cease to Be. So I had like a lot of card gaming passion on my mind and not much direction for it. Like I didn't have anything I was playing. It's like, oh, I need to find something really fun. And then that opportunity, the playtesting opportunity, sort of came on my radar. And I'd played a ton of card games from like the late 90s, early 2000s. A million TCGs had popped up around that time, themed in, from any cartoon to any show to of varying quality. So I kind of submitted some paperwork saying like, hey, I've played this many dozens of card games, some casually, some more, seriously. And that was it. I managed to luck into the process, and I really enjoyed the game. So I kept hammering it in and kept playing and playing. Pretty much they'd post like, hey, does anyone want to play? Like, yep. I'm not working right now. COVID. Yep. I'll play,
Yeah, that was pretty good timing. How about you, Jared? How did you find out about it?
I kind of similar. I do a lot of playtesting games. I really enjoy playtesting the development process. So I've done stuff for other companies and done a couple projects for Renegade, and I saw this pop up, and I was like, I love card games, a huge card game player just like James is, and I love the IP. I was like, this is the perfect opportunity for me. So I put that application in, upselled myself as much as possible because I wanted to be in, and yeah, got in, and yeah, same thing. James and I play a lot of games together. It's just pretty much we play a couple games a week, I think, at this point.
Yeah, we do.
We're banging them out.
So, Jared, had you played any games? Obviously, you've been playtesting in the past. Had you played any games that were completely digital like this? Normally, you would be playtesting with cards you're cutting out and making new ones every single week. This is the first time, at least, Renegade had done anything like this. So, had you played games in that kind of format before?
No, yeah, this is the first. There was a very initial period when we first started where we had actual print files, and that went away very quickly. And then I went to all digital. So this is the first all digital playtest I've been involved in, and to be honest, I really like it. I don't have to print cards and cut cards, and which it's fine to do when I'm watching TV and just sitting there cutting cards and re-sleeving cards, which is great. But sometimes we'll play a game and we'll make a change right then and there, and then it's ready to go in an hour. And the whole files are updated online, and it's really nice.
That's awesome. Yeah. How about you, James? How was that experience for you?
Like the transition from a physical to a digital medium.
Yeah, and
I've
doing the
played a lot.
playtesting that way.
Yeah, in a playtesting manner. I hadn't playtested digitally before, but I had played a lot of digital games. There's a platform for playing Netrunner called Genteki.net. I really like a digital card game called Mythgard. So playing on a card game on the computer wasn't terribly foreign to me. And the playtesting thing that I think Dan mainly worked on it. The process he made was quite good. It didn't feel like it was good. User friendly, I guess is a good word.
It definitely is.
Like whenever he makes changes, it's like immediately there, as opposed to, like you said, like having to cut out or like, okay, I'm gonna write down this on my little card or something like that. Like if they think up a change, or if a change is suggested that they want to roll with, they can have it updated in the next 11 minutes sometimes, really. So it's really
That's awesome.
it's really convenient. I can see from a playtesting perspective how it's a really good tool in the box to have.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I actually worked with Matt Hyra, the designer of Rivals. I worked with him when we were both at Cryptozoic, and we were working on a lot of various games like the DC deck building game, but also different various World of Warcraft TCG sets. And there were always times in the office when suddenly the entire organized play team, which is where I worked, would just have to be cutting cards for an afternoon. And I am so over that. If I could just have everything digitally, that would be wonderful. But I'm always impressed at how quickly Matt Hyra makes changes, and I can see the digital format being really good for that, because he just will see everybody playing and quickly identify where there are these little issues and know exactly what to do to fix it. I'm always just super impressed.
Yeah, we'll play a game and we'll now our playtest team is bigger, so there's 4 of us playing, and Matt and Dan are watching. We got a couple other spectators. We'll play it, we'll finish it, and we might discuss a card, and it's changed.
Yeah,
right then.
That's awesome.
So it's
and even
cool.
wonky changes are easy to make. Like if you just make a weird thing, like what if we tried just this, and it'd be like, you know what, we'll try it. It sounds kind of interesting, and it's not like it's going to take a lot of time and effort to change it back if it's just terrible. So it's kind of have some interesting ideas sometimes crop up. It seems like anyway.
Yeah.
Very nice. So as part of the playtest, Jared, was there anything surprising or kind of weird that happened with any of the cards as you were playtesting them?
Let's see, weird stuff. I'm trying to think. Because we were discussing this earlier, there has been some big changes, particularly with how now influence works was different earlier in the playtest. That's like probably the biggest change, and of course, name changes have changed a lot, which James and I make mistakes all the time on.
Oh yeah. I don't even think we should talk about it just so we don't confuse people. Like the specific names, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean it's not any necessarily huge surprises, particularly now that we're all digital and we have the Discord channel stuff going up. So there's not much back end stuff. Like it's not like, oh, I played a game, I put my report in, and then a week later there's changes. The team is very close now, which helps. But in the initial stages, there was a lot of different stuff going on. The city deck changed a lot at the beginning. That a lot of big changes. So, like 1 week, hey, we're trying this, and the next week it's gone. It didn't work, right?
So how about you, James? Is there anything that stood out to you, something that just wasn't working at the beginning, and then somebody found a good solution to it and changed it a whole bunch by the time we got to where we're at now?
Yeah, I think the influence voting system is a big one that Jared mentioned. There was a little bit, not a huge overhaul. The bones were already there, but as far as like the basics of how schemes would work and stuff like that, that changed a little bit. There's a handful of just, are we allowed to talk about specific cards as long as they're in the core kind of thing?
Sure, go for it.
Yeah, like balance, some balance stuff. I think oh, what is his name? Jared, you can help me. The Toreador, he gets increased influence for having retainers. Is it Muhammad?
That's Muhammad. Yep.
Muhammad, yeah. Muhammad used to be twice as efficient.
Yeah.
He used to be double as strong as he is now. And that was one that in my like I would lead Muhammad. Is his last name Zarai? Maybe it's just Muhammad. But I would lead Muhammad like 3 games in a row. It's just so good. It's just so good. And then finally it got rightfully nerfed a little bit. He's still quite good. But that's one that comes to mind as someone who was just a field, like he was a commanding presence on the board the moment he showed up. And then the only other change, like we were mentioning wonky changes that sometimes occur. And my suggestion was the super sad that ended up being a terrible suggestion. I thought the game could benefit from like a somewhat like larger special affairs presence. And so they implemented it just to try it out. And man, was that idea bad.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes I have some good ideas, but that one was not a good idea. We were just getting murdered left and right. And it's like, okay, no, take it out. Just please take it away. I admit that this is bad.
All right, I challenge A1 in chat. Once you get your copies of the real game, you have to track down James and find him and figure out what this super sad thing was, because it sounds like an extra challenge. If you can beat the special affairs division when they're extra hardcore, then I'll be impressed.
Yeah, it was a sad with extra health, so it was much harder to take down.
Yeah, he was an elite.
Yeah. Ooh. I can see that really wrecking you, especially if you randomly flip him over right at the beginning. It just crush you.
Yeah. Sometimes he did that. He was worth more points, but yeah, he did do that sometimes.
Yikes. Yeah, it's all about finding that balance. We talked a lot last week about when cards show up in your hand and whether or not they're actually good at the beginning of the game, in the middle of the game, and the end of the game. And so it is interesting because you're not only balancing the cards that players are getting, but also the ones that are coming out in the city deck, and making sure that throughout the entire experience, they're going to be balanced and reasonable and not too hard or too easy. And that's interesting that you tried some of those and they didn't really work.
Yeah.
That's how you figure it out. That's what playtesting is all about. Very fun. So what are you most excited about for people to see when they actually get the game? Something that maybe people will be surprised about. Anything you can think of, Jared?
I really can't wait. As a card game player, I can't wait till people start building decks. And I think Vampire has a lot of, it's simple, but it has a lot of nuances. Am I building a deck for just 2 players? Am I building a deck for 4 players? How many clans do I want to, because I can run 3 or 4 clans on my deck, and it's not too big of a deal because I could run all neutral cards and pick whatever vampires I want, and my deck will still function really well if I want. Or I could just do 1 clan and run straight Toreador and wreck people's days if I really wanted to. So it's really, really fun. Even just in the core set, there's a lot of fun, tricky combos and stuff you can do. You can make a Bruja deck that focuses on schemes. Doesn't seem likely, but you can do it, which is super fun. Yeah, I made a deck early on that used Malkavians and schemes, and I would use my conspiracies as a bidding mechanic for my schemes. Like, hey, you should vote for my scheme, or I'll use my conspiracy and target you if you don't bid for me. Right, so there's a lot of fun. There was actually no game mechanic for that, but it was just trying to influence people to go my way, and it was out there and it was fun.
Nice. So James, I actually have a question for you from chat. What's been one of the more fun things of being a playtester on Rivals compared to other games you've tested, possibly?
The most fun thing about Rivals compared to other game testing, I would say, the digital implementation of it. I mean, it's kind of doubling back a little bit to a positive we already talked about, but it's the ability to get games almost on demand and on the fly is really nice. Like I think Jared, like sometimes we'll just be having like a slow night, like a slow Wednesday or Thursday or whatever, and be like, does anyone want to play? Does anyone want to get some testing in? And yeah, you know, like usually there's a few people that are on board. So that convenience of just like right now, almost anytime you want to play test, you can, if there's usually there's someone willing and able to. That is wanting to. I think that's a really good sign for the game as well. It's not, you know, like playtesting sometimes is like a little bit of like trial and error work for some games. It's like, okay, we'll play again, and by, you know, a certain amount of times it's like, oh, I guess we'll keep doing it. But no, I mean, like for Rivals, it's like I kind of just want to keep playing again. So that's, I mean, you know, that's a good sign for the game that everyone playing, everyone testing it is like on board for let's play another.
Yeah, I mean, I've been playing since.
That's a pretty big deal.
I've been playing since March, and I'm still playing 2-3 games a week.
Yeah.
And love
I
it.
don't know how many
I
games
love
we've
it.
got in our belts, Jared, but it's
Yeah.
we're approaching big numbers. I don't know.
That's really pretty amazing. So at the beginning of Renegade, it was a much smaller team back then, and we were looking for games from designers from all over the world, and we would get games shipped to us from designers that were in prototype form. So they often didn't have any art. They had really difficult to understand rules, and I would bring them to my local gaming group and get all excited. Look, we have this game. Nobody's ever seen it before. It's a brand new thing, and you get to be the first people to play test it. And they would get all excited, and we'd sit down and we'd start playing the games. And after a while, when I would do that, I'd show up and say, hey, I have a brand new prototype. They would all kind of roll their eyes like, oh, this is going to be hard to learn. And it's probably going to be like, maybe it's going to be a good game, but it needs lots of work still. And it can get really old. But when you have that gem and you have a really good game that's so special like that, I would have people ask me over and over again, can you please bring back that game that was just printed out of crayon drawings? Because we've never played anything like it. It is so fun. And that's when you know this is the game that we should publish. So that's pretty cool, because I've seen the software you guys use to do playtesting is actually not Tabletopia. That's the fancy version that we let all of the wonderful backers get to see and play on when we have those special weekends. You use a different system that's actually, I hate to say it, but it's not very pretty, but it is very efficient. James, do you want to tell us what that is and tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, the system we're using, I think, is screentop.gg, maybe? It's Screentop. It's called Screentop anyway. I don't know if Tabletopia, does the Tabletopia version have deck building in it already, or are you kind of using pre-assembled decks whenever you use Tabletopia? Okay. Yeah. So for Screentop, it has functionality where you can deck build, and you're doing it on multiple. You're swapping tables. So it's like, okay, I'm gonna drag my tray of cards to this table, and then I'm gonna go through, and it's just whenever you go to this table, it's a smorgasbord of cards to choose from. It's just like you're a kid in a candy store as far as the cards are concerned. All of them are on your screen. So you zoom in and you're like, okay, reading, like looking through, like fiddling through like a library catalog or something, and then plucking out the cards you want, dragging them to a different part of your screen, and then dragging that part of your screen to a different screen. It sounds like it's not intuitive, and maybe it wouldn't be for some people, but it is good for what it needs to be doing. You know, I can understand why it's not necessarily the platform you want to show backers or people who want to get a first taste of the game, because that it might be a little bit much to fiddle around and deal with. But what we're using it for, it's definitely a really good tool.
That's very cool. How about you, Jared? How you feel about using Screentop?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great. I've actually just fooled around with it. I fooled around once it came out. I guess it's in beta release now. You could go find it. There's some games on there. It's pretty. I've done some back end stuff, and it's really nice. That's why the card changes are good, because Dan can just go in there and just swap out an image in the deck and pop it back in, and it just changes everything automatically for you. And unlike stuff like Tabletop Simulator, which is nice, it's browser based, so there's no all these background extra resources running on my computer slowing me down, which is huge for me, since my computer's not that great. So. But yeah, it's really nice, and yeah, it's great. Everything it just locks into place, and Dan's done a good job making it work for us too.
Nice, that's awesome.
We got the super hand recently. That was a fun update, wasn't it, Jared?
Oh yes, yeah.
What's that?
So
As long as this
and
isn't spoilers for
this is not spoilers for
future
anything coming out.
expansions. Okay, good.
Yeah, no spoilers for
Okay.
expansions, but for sometimes it's relevant for you strategically to know what is in the person's hand from sitting across from you, if it's a library card or a crypt card, if they're holding a vampire, which in the normal course of the game, physically at a table, you'd be able to tell because of the card backs, and I assume tournament rules will require different sleeves for the two different decks. So Dan found out a way to layer your hand to where crypt cards are in a different spot, and then your library cards are in a different spot, and then because sometimes you have to drag a token into your hand for bidding purposes for schemes. This isn't anything new. There's even a spot in there for that. It looks like the dashboard of a car now. It's like, wow, this is like a premium hand now. This is like we're cooking now. This is fancy stuff.
That's pretty funny. Amazing. So you've both gotten to experience Vampire Rivals, and that's obviously what we're here to talk about today. But I did just want a little teeny tiny side tangent. Have either of you gotten to play the Power Rangers deck building game yet?
Yes, I was in the early playtesting for that. There's some very passionate people in that playtest, which is great. But there were a lot more people in that playtest versus vampires. So I ended up focusing more time on vampires over the Power Rangers game. The Power Rangers game is great. I love deck building games as well. It's cards, and it has some different mechanics to it, which is super fun. So it is a good one.
Awesome. That's cool. I was just curious.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a lot of different card games, lots of board games, and of course the miniatures Power Rangers game in our line. And I'm really excited that we have the expandable card game for Vampire Rivals, because it's the very first expandable card game we've done. So it's really, really different than anything else, which is why playtesters are even so much more important for this one than any of our other games. And because we really want to be competitive in the future. So Jared, what is your favorite, I don't know if you've done much playtesting with formats yet, but what's your favorite format to play in?
If I picked format, I think I really enjoy the 4-player game over the 2-player game. And there's nothing wrong with the 2-player game. 2-player game is still great. It's just a different type of game. And I really like the mechanics table-wide that a 4-player game brings. That you always have that, in a 4-player game, you always have that neutral party, as I like to call it, because you have your rival and you have the person who's gunning for you. And then you have, it could be James sitting over here in the corner who has no interaction with me whatsoever. And I can use him. I can kind of nudge him to help me out, to take some pressure off of me to do my own stuff. And there's really cool mechanic stuff going on. So I really dig that. That's really what attracted me to the game the most, is that 4-player. And really, time-wise, James can probably contest. We play 4-player games and we're done in under an hour. Now that we're all pretty comfortable with the games, which is great. And that's constructed decks, not even just core decks.
That's really important for competitive play too, because you want to be able to play enough games that you can actually have a winner at the end and not be there all night. So James, you've played a lot of very competitive card games outside of Vampire Rivals. Are there tournament formats that you would love to see in Rivals in that competitive sense? We haven't announced our competitive tournament stuff for Rivals yet, but just curious what you would love to see.
So formats specifically, or like the structure that the tournaments could take? It's just whatever sort of free form.
Yeah, right.
Whatever, go for it. Yeah, free form it.
What makes Vampire Rivals interesting, and there's been like only a few, honestly. There's only a handful of card games that have been somewhat like it, and that it's there's like very much social aspects to the card game itself. A lot of times, card games are like, okay, 2 players head to head. If it's asymmetric, you'll swap halfway through. But otherwise, it's okay. Let's beat each other up, and who won, or who got tiebreaker or whatever. Vampire Rivals is unique in that you sometimes will have that head-to-head feel, but in a 3 or 4 player game, there will be, like Jared was just mentioning, that social aspect of like negotiating with someone across the table, or trying to loop people into your stuff, or like diverting attention away from you. That social aspect makes it adds like And not only that, but I can imagine a lot of people are going to approach this game with a lot of like clan identity. Like they're going to have an emotional vested interest in what they're playing. So I think, and this is very abstract, and I don't know if there's a way to work it in or whatever, but I think if there's a way to pluck that passion that those players may have for certain clans, if they really are passionate about representing Venture specifically, or really passionate about Toreador, that if they emphasize that in their deck, or maybe a format that requires them to have like some kind of like some dominant theme or story aspect to their deck. I think if you can blend a competitive experience with like a narrative storytelling aspect, that would be pretty cool, and that'd be like not very much charted territory. That'd be unique. If you can get people to have an emotional investment in the deck they're playing, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, we were just talking the other day in the Playtesters chat about these type of specific events and tournaments and stuff. And we were saying how like, oh, this coming up in 2 weeks, there's a full moon. So not that they're in the game yet, but the Gangrel off running with the wolves. So coming up in 2 weeks, you can't play any Gangrel this week because they're off doing their own thing. So it's just gonna, even if you're playing with the same people in your own shop every day, these tiny little story events or little mini formats might make you change your deck just for the day to mix it up and see some different combos you never saw to begin with. Just, some fun play.
Definitely. I love that. So speaking again of tournaments, events, things that we can't necessarily do right now, but we're looking towards the future to be able to do. If there were one thing that you could win as a prize, big or small, that would help you represent that clan that you're very excited about, what would that thing be? Jared, do you want to take a stab at that one?
To specifically represent your clan or like represent yourself?
If you have an idea for yourself, go for it. I was thinking more along clan lines.
Yeah, I had a cool idea of a tournament format that focuses on your local game shop, your local game store, and your local community. And it'd be like a 16-week event or something like that. And every week you compete, and the winner becomes the prince of your game shop. I am now the prince.
Nice.
And then next week, in the next 2 weeks, we compete again. At the end, you have the prince of your game shop, and it could be I'm the prince and I represent Toreador. And then it goes up on your game shop. It's up on the wall. James is the prince of his game store, and he represents the Toreador.
Yep.
And this is now our shop. And you can put that up online, and now everyone knows that at XYZ Game Store, James is the prince, representing Toreador. Yeah, that was cool. There's no you actually get anything except for feeling good about myself. I'm the best, and I'm the prince.
That's very important. Feeling good about yourself is still worth it. Seeing your name up there definitely has some value. Yeah, I have piles of fantastic Word docs, Google Docs, with all sorts of fun ideas for as soon as we can do them. Yeah, right. Yeah, that's always the limit. So it sounds like we're on a good track there. How about you, James? You actually run a game store in Ohio. So is there any fun stuff that you would love to see that you could run in your game store when it's safe to do so?
For events specifically, I'm a sucker, and I think a lot of people are suckers for like tactile swag that you can kind of bling out your game experience with. Like tokens that are themed in specific clans is pretty cool to me. Your haven and your agenda are static cards in your deck that don't necessarily have to move. They don't have to get shuffled at any point in the game. So like maybe like fancy wooden etched ones like that or something like that. I don't know, just weird stuff to customize. Alternate arts are always amazing. I'm a sucker for if I can include a card in my deck that shows I went to a particular event or participated in a particular thing. That I can slot in my deck. And the moment I throw that down, it's like telling a little bit of a story of like some place I went to or some experience I had. And not only that, but it looks pretty cool on its own. Like that's always fun. So I'm just some people play some like TCGs and stuff, and there's like cash prizes and stuff. I don't really care about that. I just want like
take the swag, man.
I want swag. I want stuff to bling out my game experience with.
Imagine that.
Totally.
Imagine like
Yeah.
that. Imagine special events, right? You go to like something like Gen Con, it's a big event. And I mean, there's a card coming up that's similar to it in the core set, the marked man, right?
Yeah.
If James and his tour, a couple people in this tournament are marked, they have a roll, a primogen or something. If you beat them, you get something.
Yeah.
You took them down. You took their roll, and you get your sweet swag and say, hey, I beat James at Gen Con.
Tournament
I got this.
bounty.
I got this card. Right? I came in last place in the tournament, but I beat James. Right?
We've done all sorts of wacky things like that for events at other companies I've worked for, and they can be such a good fun. I really like that stuff. Yeah, that's really fun. What's maybe your favorite piece of swag from any game that you've ever received at an event? James, maybe you have some ideas there.
I'm gonna see if it's in if I have my cards in reaching distance. I don't really, unfortunately. The best swag I've gotten from any game, I have like stacks of. I really like playmats. I'm a sucker for playmats. I have stacks of playmats.
Same way.
For Netrunner, for the Star Wars LCG, for a handful of stuff. Anytime you show up, and if you do reasonably well, you might get a playmat. Like I'm not by any means like an expert card player, but I can get first in a local tournament, so I just get a playmat. But my favorite piece of swag, that's difficult. Oh, I know
So
what
what
it
are
was.
your?
I have one. I made it myself though, so I don't know. Well, I got it made. I commissioned. So I was really into the Star Wars LCG at one point, and I commissioned a piece of art to use as my clan, not my clan, my faction, my faction identity. So I had a local guy paint Cloud City on over one of my cards and leave certain icons in place. So that was just my own card that I had for that because it was just on the field. As far as
That's
I really like
awesome.
my virus tokens that I got at a tournament once for Netrunner. I like transition my tokens over to different games. It's like going to when you go to a concert and you got to wear the other band's shirt. Like you can't wear the band you're seeing. You gotta rep a different band to show a different concert you've been to. I like taking my tokens and making them some weird amalgamation of all the other card games tokens I've gotten. So
Nice.
I like my token container. I got my token container, and that's my favorite thing, I guess.
How about you, Jared? That's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely a sucker for a great playmat. I love them. Right? Same as James. I got a stack like this thick, right?
Oh yeah.
But I used to play Ashes Ride the Phoenix board by Plat Hat back in the day, and in the game they have a first player token. It's like this big, right? And in a Gen Con tournament they had a fancy first player token in crystal. It's like this big.
Ooh, very.
That's what I got.
fancy.
It's really not anything special except it's fancy, and it's really nice. So it's ridiculous.
That's fantastic. I'm excited for the alternate art of vampire cards that all the Kickstarter backers get.
Oh
the
yeah,
different
art's great.
Those cards, I
Yeah,
think
I'm
it's
getting
really
them.
fun. Like they look so prim and proper, and then the alternate art cards are them just like in their natural angry form. It's so good.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, we're already feeding alt art ideas to Dan and Matt in the playtest chats.
Nice.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, so I've actually been this last week working on some extra promo cards for themes that are happening in the future that I don't even know if the two of you know about yet. I haven't announced them, but we will get to those soon. All sorts of fun things in the background. And everybody who was in the Kickstarter gets that very first season 0 organized play kit that does have a playmat in it, so everybody will be able to have a playmat to start off, and then some promo cards to convince anybody to come and play with them. But we also will have season 1 kits, so we have more kits coming out in the future. Obviously we did season 0, there's more on the horizon for when we get there, and we've already got those all planned out. So moving forward, we have lots of reasons for people to get together when they can and play and fight for those cards and those playmats. It should be fun. But we need other themes for bigger fun events. So I've got a whole list of ideas, but you two have been very helpful. Very good. And of course, anyone in chat, if you did have any questions for our wonderful guests or any ideas for anything that you would like to see. I saw some big clan tokens, metal clan tokens. Those are great ideas. Anything else people want to say, that would be fantastic. I did see one question in there. I think it was it Jared? Were you the one talking about the Star Wars LCG?
No, it was James.
James, there's a question. When did you play the Star Wars LCG? That was a while back. That was a Decipher game, actually.
So the Star Wars CCG was a Decipher game from the. There's a lot of
Star Wars card games out there.
That's true.
I could off the top of my head, there's like 5 Star Wars card games, and I probably don't even know half of them. But the Star Wars LCG was an FFG game, and I played it heavily. Maybe 6 years ago at this point. I played it during the first 2 sets mainly. And then it had like, I'm not gonna say like balance. It had balance issues. We'll throw that shit. It had a few balance issues, so I ended up bowing out. I think they fixed it, but I swapped 100% the Netrunner at one point.
Good choice.
I did enjoy it. I had my fun with it, and I still played it somewhat casually. I just didn't go travel for tournaments anymore for it. So.
That makes sense. Also, someone was wondering if you, James, are currently sitting in the Fantasy Flight Game Center. But no, you are sitting in your store, which was a previous question. What is the name of your store?
Oh, my store is Sapphire City Board Game Parlor in Northeast Ohio. I'm not at the FFG Event Center. I'm in Northeast Ohio. Don't come here though, because we're currently shut down for COVID. So come later.
Oh no! Well, your store is very beautiful.
Thank you.
I'm glad that at least we get to enjoy it, even though nobody else can right now.
Come see me in a few months.
Unfortunate. Yeah, that's fair. So you're not doing any events or any in-store shopping or anything at all?
We are doing retail right now, and we could technically open with current laws. I'm with the tactile nature of board gaming, because we're a board game bar. So the emphasis of board games and gaming is like, okay, sitting around a table with strangers, having an experience together, a lot of the time anyway, or loose acquaintances. But sometimes the magic of it is meeting up with strangers. And that is a really, 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 really cool aspect of board gaming that is really, 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 really not appropriate for 2020, in my opinion.
Sadly.
We've chosen to remain 60 to 70% closed by choice, just because it feels like the most appropriate thing to do if we're financially sound enough to do it, which thankfully we are. So.
Yeah, I am really excited for when everybody can safely open up and have those experiences again, like you mentioned, because I think a lot of us really miss it more than we thought we were going to. And we've had our time sitting alone in our houses wishing we could play games, and we're all ready to get there again. But not quite yet. We're close, but maybe we'll see. So it's good to just be a little patient, and we really appreciate businesses like you still sticking it out and doing what's right and being careful. So that's
Maybe
great.
you can host us a vampire event, James, in the future.
I'm gonna do it. Like you say that, I'm gonna
Nice.
I'm gonna petition to be like, hey, you want the vampire world tournament? I got you covered. I got alcohol, free beers, we got it. Free red wine.
Awesome.
Red wine. That seems more appropriate.
That would be very
How
appropriate.
close are you to Origins? Because Origins is in Columbus, Ohio.
I am not close enough. I'm like an hour and a half away. I do travel to Origins. Probably not close enough for a convenient tournament. I will go to Origins for your vampire tournament, so I will go there myself. And
Sounds good.
Place mediocre to good, but it'll be fun.
Oh, well, we'll need some judges then too, so we'll have to talk about that later.
Give me that Metal Haven token. I'll be there, or the Metal Haven.
Give him that swag. He'll be there for anything.
Oh, so I did have a question I wanted to address in chat. Dan Solo is asking about the vote. And then Awesome as Coyote was also asking about that. We do have the results. Matt is working furiously behind the scenes to make the new expansions based on all of the fantastic information that we got from that survey, but we're not quite ready to announce that yet. We have some other things going on behind the scenes, so hold on tight. We still have another month and a half or so until we end up with the cards in our hands. Depending on how everything shakes out with shipping is crazy right now. So sometime in January, we'll actually have our cards in our hands. So we've got some time between now and then. So not quite yet, just wait. but we're glad that you're excited. We are too. So as soon as we are ready to tell you, don't worry, we'll make sure that you know. So cool. Any other exciting questions in chat? Please put those in there. We don't have too much time left. So just to start wrapping this up a little bit, Jared, is there anything else that you want people to know before they get that box and are able to open it? Because we're actually going to be doing a box opening next week on this show. I know, I'm very, very excited about that. We finally got our proof copy in, and we'll be able to unbox that and show everyone what the contents look like, what the interior of that box, how it's organized. But before we do that, what do you want people to know about Vampire the Masquerade Rivals expandable card game?
I would say when you get that core box and look at all the awesome art, I really think to put your clan loyalties aside for a moment, and you should at least try all 4 core decks, because you might find something that you like in the game that you didn't think you would like. Generally in card games, I am not a aggressive player, but you give me a Bruja deck and I win a lot, even though it's not my playstyle. It does really well in the game. So just try it all. It's all good.
Nice. I think that's very good advice. James, here's a good question for you. Do you feel any of the factions were a bit ahead out of that core box before you start adding in any of the crypt cards? Or do you feel like they were all just for different play styles?
Interesting. Do I feel like any of the core decks are better than any of the other ones right away? I feel like
if there was a big metal token on the line, which one would you grab out of that box?
Oh, big metal token. Toreador. I would pick Toreador if I had to choose that. I would pick the Toreador core deck if there was a big metal token on the line. It's not necessarily that they all have their quirks. They're all good in their own way, and I think they are pretty well balanced. But there's a handful that just lend themselves to more basic brute force playstyles. Bruja, obviously, all about the physical. Aggro stuff is where you're going to gravitate towards most likely when you're first trying a card game. The tricky stuff, maybe if you have a lot of experience with card games, you might gravitate towards that originally. But the stuff that's going to be the easiest to grasp is I want to punch things particularly hard. Bruja is good at that, but Toreador is also surprisingly good at that, specifically against mortals. But that's a useful ability to have. So I think I would probably pick Toreador if there was a core only deck with a really fancy metal card on the line.
All right, that's a very good answer. How about you, Jared? Is there a favorite card or mechanic, something that you just think is a little bit special? Not even necessarily your favorite, just something you thought was super cool.
I mean, my favorite card is Hedge Your Bets because I named it, so that's why.
Oh, okay, that's fair. That's
I'm just kidding. I think my favorite mechanic in the game is I really like schemes. That's my favorite.
I think schemes are really unique. I love the way they work, and I haven't seen those work quite that way in other games.
There's nothing else. There's nothing else like it. It involves every single player in the game. I mean, conspiracies are really cool too. I like those, but there's stuff kind of like that in other games in a similar vein, but there's nothing that I can think of as like a scheme. I play this card, you gotta weigh it, and there's blind bidding. I don't know. Am I faking people out? You know, you get cards where like even if you lose, like in Hedge Your Bets, you get something out of it. So I could be bluffing just to get that bonus because I want to lose. There's really cool. So I think schemes overall are my favorite thing in the game.
Nice, very cool. We did have another question. This one I believe is for me. Dan Solo is asking if we're going to do any more deep dives into any of the other clans. Yes, we will be doing that. We wanted to mix it up a little bit. That's why I asked these two wonderful gentlemen to join me this week, but we will be getting back to those deep dives. I also wanted to spread them out a little bit and get a little bit closer to when you can have those cards in your own hands. So those might be good episodes to come back to after you have your decks as well. But yes, we will be doing more of those for sure. And we also want to do some that are kind of an intro to deck building. So once you get all your cards and you've played with those already pre-created decks and you have a pretty good feel for how each clan works, and then you're ready to start adding new cards into those decks, we'll have an episode that's just about how to start integrating those pack cards in a way that's fun and interesting. So yeah, well, I'm glad, Dan, that you enjoyed that episode. That was fun. Matt is just a font of knowledge. He always has lots of interesting things to tell us. Awesome. Very cool. Well, I think that, we have one more question. Okay, how much does being ahead in player skill get balanced out by the table politics and people agreeing to go after the best player, especially in those 4-player games? Jared, do you want to tackle that question?
Yeah, it's something we've looked at in play testing, the going after the leader or the king making type thing. It's one of those things where you kind of want to make sure no one's too far ahead, because otherwise they'll probably win. But you always have to do what's also best for you. Sometimes taking an action just to, like if James is in the lead, just taking an action to soften James up, just to make it a better choice for someone else to maybe ding him harder, and I can still do one of my own actions to do something good that progresses me, slightly weakens James. And of course, there's table talk, so you talk about that type of stuff. Like I can make a deal with my neighbor and say, "Hey, that says both King James 1 hit. We'll just leave each other alone this round. We just soften him up. We can do our own thing and kind of gang up on him." So there's that balance where, and even as a player, you don't want to go too far ahead, because as soon as you do, you got that target on your back. So if you're up at 8 agenda and everyone else is down at 4 and 5, guess what? They're going to come for you. So then you got to be careful.
Definitely, which is very thematic, as James in chat mentioned. That really feels like the World of Darkness setting, having somebody who becomes the prince of the city, and then they've got this huge target on their back, and they no longer have that secrecy. It just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
it's very cool. Awesome. Well, any last exciting things, James, you want to tell our fans watching, or anybody who's just getting into this game?
Let's see. Actually, I do have a favorite card, a favorite card I resound with that I would. So, Adventure have a vampire called Bruno Wagner, and Bruno Wagner is the best card in the game, in my opinion. That's debatable. So first off, when you open this car, I want you to look at, when you open the box, I want you to thumb over to Bruno Wagner. I want you to admire the art and look at how many shoes he has in the background.
So he's the best card in the game because he has lots of shoes.
He's a very, very fashionable person. He's amazing. Like he's the most dapper vampire ever. But he's also very good. He used to be a different, so I resound well with him because I used to lead with him all the time, but he had a different name. And then Matt switched his ability with a different vampire, and it's like I love him so much more now. He's so handsome, and he's got a really
so many shoes.
He has so many. I love leading with Bruno Wagner. So many shoes. So
See,
Bruno
I
Wagner
would disagree and say
vampire.
that Shades is the best vampire. But that's just my opinion.
Well, he's got pretty good sunglasses. So
yeah, he's got great shades.
Also fashionable. All right. I think that when this comes out and we actually get to have some events, I'm going to be very disappointed if James does not have a very fashionable vampire deck with that theme. So all of the cards in there are just all about fashion. That's what I expect to see.
Bruno will be my leader.
James.
Bruno will be my leader. As long as no one takes it from me.
Oh, that's right. Well, fantastic. I think we have answered most of the questions. We've chatted about all sorts of fun things. Just a really quick update for everybody who's watching. We have been working very hard behind the scenes on several different things. We have sent all the files to the printer for the Kickstarter, and all of those have been reviewed. And I think we're on the last couple of approvals before the printer actually gets to hit the print button and start working on physically making all that stuff. We do have that first proof copy that just arrived, I believe today, and Desiree is going to help us show that off next week on Vampire Wednesdays at 5:00 p.m. Pacific time on Wednesday. And we also this week we're working very hard on the website. We have a lot of back-end functionality we've talked about a ton already, but we will not have all of that ready to go next week, but we are going to add some extra stuff that we can show off and just add a few more little things you can touch and move around on the website. So that'll be really good, and that'll be ready by next week as well. So lots of good stuff going on in the background. Our whole team is working very hard on this. And of course, our playtesters are playtesting the upcoming expansions to make sure those are balanced and exciting and super fun, but they have been instructed not to talk about them. Sorry, both of you. But next time, we'll have to have you back again because this has been wonderful. Thank you, James. Thank you, Jared. It's been great. I hope you have both a wonderful, peaceful evening, and we will hopefully see you again soon.
Great.
And
this was
thank
fun.
you, everyone in chat. Awesome. Well, have a good one, everyone, and we will see you next Wednesday. Have fun.
Bye.